Welcome to the second season of Under the Onion Skin, the podcast to get closer to independent animation directors and get to know some behind the scenes of their short films. My name is Giulia Martinelli, and each time I talk to a different director about an animated film they made. With this podcast, I hope to be able to capture a glimpse of what I love mostly about film festivals, to have something to listen to when we're back to our regular lives and desks, but most of all to celebrate beautiful films, talented artists, and storytellers. Welcome to Under the Onion Skin. Hi, this is the episode in which I chat with Austrian director Nikki Schuster about her experimental short film Subotopic. The episode has been recorded during Fantoche Festival 2024 and it's one of the last ones from that batch. 2 more are coming after this one. In this episode, among other things, we're talking about the process of making an experimental film, continuous movement, and solo work. Enjoy.
It's nice to have projects to travel with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of festivals, that you have the chance also to travel to different places and meet different people. And so I like this festival vibe, and the idea is to capture this conversation. So I hope you don't feel like a Q&A official on the stage. It's more like a chat.
Yeah, because normally I hate Q&As and talks and interviews. I don't know why I think one of the first who said, yeah, I want to do it because it sounded like easygoing. I listened to some podcasts.
And that's cool.
And they sound like, you even hear the noise around. So
and also exactly, I don't have a list of questions that I want to ask. It's more like getting to chat about your project and see where the conversation goes.
Nice. I like this way of.
I watched your film. I found it very interesting. I'm very happy now that we have the time to dive into it.
Right word, dive into it.
Exactly. It was not a coincidence, yes. How did you decide to work with water?
Maybe the first idea came with, because my last movie was called Animistica, and it was also quite in a lot of turning around festivals. And the task of this, I always have I start the movie with a little task, and then it becomes deep. But sometimes, because I'm an experimental filmmaker, let's call it, and it's really like this. I'm starting with an idea, and then it goes into trying out. Very intuitive. And this film Animistica I made in 2018, and it was about just to scan surfaces. In this case, it was in Mexico. It was about death and intense stories behind the surface and what you see and what you don't see. Mm-hmm. It was always this idea, and I used quite in most of my movies. I use this macro view, so like the scanning of in a very close-up view, so you don't really know what you see. It's just your mind and your imagination has to also work to identify, because we all want to have control, and me too. I want to understand what I'm seeing.
And because you only see one detail, you don't know the whole picture.
No, you don't see the whole picture, but you see suddenly, your imagination works that you think you see something ugly or death, but in reality it was just water, for example. Still talking about animistic. But then when I started to, always when you finish a movie, you think, okay, what comes next? You think now you are over, you will never have another idea because you really exploded everything. And suddenly, boom, comes a thing. And I thought I would like to make a movement downwards, because this was the scanning, like a 2D horizontal, and I wanted to a vertical, like a vertical one. And I don't know, this idea to see what's underwater, and water fascinated me. Mm-hmm. And in the end, I started just to animate, because it's all single frame animated, and then I use slow motion to the sequence is not slowed down, and I use a kind of a presetting which moves pixels, so it's not even morphing, but it moves the pixels of the second step of the photo, so it looks because it looks like nearly a video.
Yeah,
but it's all
pictures.
pictures.
Okay.
with a simple. I always work with the camera I bought already 15 years ago. I always buy again the same camera on eBay. It doesn't exist anymore. But I like this simple camera, and I found a case by accident, not in, which fits exactly to this camera, so that I can use it underwater.
Oh, wow.
But the funny thing is, I'm not underwater, so it's just I don't even know what I'm.
It's like an aquarium, or how did you?
I chose a little pond
Yeah.
in a very nice place in Berlin, my favorite, because I lived there since 25 years something. And the nice places are always disappearing because gentrification, but there's still this one beautiful collective called Villa Curiosum to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a little, like a nearly botanical garden, and talks to one of the guy who was responsible for this. He made a little pond I think you call it, like, and it's full of plants, but it's more like 1.5 meters, and deep just 50 centimeters, not even deeper. And there I wanted just to see how this pond, these plants inside there are frogs and water plants, but wild, not really controlled. No, it's changing over the period of the season. So I went there every 2 weeks when I thought now maybe the leaves fall down, and just to do the same movement actually at 3 different parts of this little pond to put my camera down. But of course I had no control. First I didn't really see what I'm filming, and then I found out that it's important what time of the day I go with the sun that I have. I love then this idea that underwater it's completely white and flat, because it's nearly, you don't see because it's always this diving down, no? And these white and flat moments are 2D for me because it's overexposed. Yeah. But not because I put one setting, and when I put it out of the camera, it's overexposed. It was not even.
But you didn't bring lights or so. It was natural light. Yeah.
In the end, I started to animate a bit with the underwater lamp. There's also some parts where I like then just to animate the light of the lamp.
Moving, yeah.
But like this, and I did a lot of takes, and then I also tried to animate in different rivers and lakes. I was in Romania by personal reason for a trip, and then I always like when I travel to work. I'm not a holiday person, so I like to have a reason also to do something else. And whenever there was a lake or a river, I went there to also do the same animation. But hardly none of this. There's like 20% from Romania, but 80% is really just, or let's say 50% is this pond, and the rest is my bath tube. All this.
Also.
Because in the end, I decided to put in these insects. Because for me, it started to be a bit. I don't know if it makes sense to talk about a film where you don't see it.
Yes, sure.
But there's one moment when I thought, okay, I always see these plants, but there I need a bit of
something
dramatic. See, I mean, I make a movie out of it, not just a biological study, no?
And you said you were doing every time the same movement or the same take, and so it was picture
down till I couldn't have, because quite heavy this camera. Then in the end, I knew I have to montage it, make a montage. So I tried in the end to go into black. So it means in the last, when I was the most down I could, because I was lying on the ground, I turned the camera to really have this animation into black, and I knew that with black you can combine another scene.
Yeah, because the movement is constant and completely smooth. I was impressed how you managed to do this, like continuous movement down, deeper and deeper.
Exactly, this was the task, and I think just the editing took me a year.
I
nearly failed. I think if I would not have got the grant for it, I would have not done the movie. But once I got the grant, I knew I have to do it. And then there's one moment when you nearly give up, but this happens quite a lot in my work. And then I decide, no, I have to. And then it starts to really become also interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it happens often, right, in the creative process, that you like reach the bottom and then you start again to find energy and solutions. So, yeah.
We all know this.
Yeah, and here you really go reaching the bottom, like going down and down and down. But it was similar. I'm curious, with the previous film was also like a continuous movement, but this time was that the first time was horizontal and the second time was vertical.
Yeah, but all my movies, I had to edit to make hard cuts. I think all of my movies, let me think, they are always a continuation, one creation of
one single movement.
Yeah, I don't know what, but this fascinates me. It disturbs me to make hard cuts. Now I do something, I have to use hard cuts, and it disturbs me because you see it's artificial act.
Yes. It's not like a experience of the eye that you see the continuous movement. Okay, but I mean, I can see that you've been using this for a long time because it works. I was very fascinated how I couldn't tell where one take was starting and the other was finishing.
Yeah. Now it was quite a montage technique in the end, but with this trick to always know to end in black, and this was a moment where you can
help. Yeah.
And I turn the images now that I always dive up. You come always up light, but you dive down.
Yes. And now I'm thinking, like, color-wise, you said you didn't bring lamps or anything, but it's very cohesive. It's very...
Because the natural light, if the sun is really quite shining from the top, or it was even autumn, but quite in the center, it's crazy how water is breaking the light, no? So I tried to really understand how it works, but it was always, as soon as the sun was a bit at another position, I had a lot of time, the reflection of my own camera lens in the water. So I really was a lot of experimenting to really have the right angle, and I still don't understand really how it works. And in this pond was perfect because the deeper you go, the less light is down there. So it was, as I was just more or less 50 centimeter down, or maybe a bit more. Now, yeah, there was still, with the maximum exposure, I could still kind of manage without lamps.
Yeah, and now I'm also thinking, because you work with photos, and I didn't know, I thought there was some video recording. You then had to build the audio from scratch.
Yeah, but I always create, for me, the sound design is as important as the image, the animation. I design it the same way. I make the sounds myself, everything. This kind, I use hydrophone because I really also wanted to be strict and made the sound recording underwater.
Yeah.
But I found out this is not the sound, they all sound the same because water is not transporting sound waves, so you need air. So underwater you can't really make...
That's true.
It didn't work out. So I used some air sounds created by noises, little objects, no?
But underwater, or...
No, I did them overboard because they didn't underwater, they all sound the same, kind of some...
Yes.
I used them, but I added some air sounds, it's called. But for the backgrounds, all this diving down, this boom, this is really always, I put the hydrophone into different kind of water. And I made a lot of sound recordings of different rivers, strong ones, because I live partly in a village in Spain, and it's famous for water. So there's a lot of water sounds in this village, different, So I recorded them all, and then I still slowed them down to make it more like more volume, because I also wanted to create these two spaces: the air sound when you come out of the movie, as in the light. It's a dry sound. It's just you hear some birds or some frogs, but it's light. I don't know the right expression. And as soon as you're down, I wanted to create a 3D space sound. So.
Yes. Yeah, I think you can tell. Yeah, that's the case. And it's I didn't know you did it all by yourself.
Yeah,
so
I always do everything.
There was just you in the process of this.
But all my movies, sometimes I get a bit sad when I see now all these artist talks, and they all talk how they work in their collectives, and I think, I don't know. For me, this is nearly impossible, because till the end, I don't know where it will go. If I have a team, I have to explain what to do. Me myself, I don't know exactly.
But also because it's very exploratory what you do. It's really an experiment. You research, you try. So I guess, but I don't think it's sad. It's very impressive that you do all this completely.
Yeah, in a way. But sometimes I think, I'm missing out of, part of the. then I go to festival and I meet all these amazing other animators, and they all have collaboration, and me, I'm always do everything myself. But yeah.
I don't know. I think both work, and depends also on the project. As I said, because it's so experimental, you have to follow the process. It's hard to maybe let people in or to explain or to direct. Yes, but that's very cool. So it's also, I mean, that's the way you want to proceed. Do you already have the next one in mind, or?
Yeah, at the moment I have really something new, a challenge completely. I do a documentary. It will be 45 minutes, which I'm sure it's completely not a good format because it doesn't fit nowhere. But
45, yeah.
Yeah, but I can't. And it's a very political, social, critical tema in Mexico, because through my last works, I'm a lot of the last 10 years, I'm always have something to do in Mexico. I always win a project. So I'm very connected to this place, and it ended up, it's about a train which is built in the south of Mexico, and it's the area where still Mayan people are living, but hardly no one knows, I think, about. And they were really bullshitted, or I don't know the nice, better way to express it. They were told this train will bring them work and progress, but in the end they got completely fucked over. And I did 100 interviews around this since 2 years. I research about this tema, and there I had again the same fear to think, now I have to work with the storyboard, with the script, with the team, because I can't make a documentary on my own. But I managed to do it again, completely on my own.
That's awesome.
And I use. I'm like halfway through, and it will be finished next May, more or less. And I use a bit textures of nature, and will really visualize it with metaphor. It's also this expression in English, and not showing, but it's pure talking. It's interviews of. So I work with voices now.
Yeah, and as you said, it's probably not just one movement. You have cuts, so you have
this time I have cuts.
Challenge that a little bit.
Yeah, I thought I should have animated also, but in this kind I have to use cuts. But it will be.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's good also to try it and see. Yeah, but that sounds very nice. Do you have a title already?
Yeah, desarraigado, which means unrooted.
Yeah, nice. I'm looking forward. I hope I will be in some festival, because, as you said, the length is not festival friendly.
No,
but maybe
there are some middle-length documentary.
Yeah.
And the nice thing of this one, it's the people themselves. They animated their own faces, because it's about all the interviews are animated by stop motion, but these people who gave me the interview are kids or in the village with some workshops. They created the characters. So it's because for me it was super important to go in all these villages in this interview and integrate them in this process. I didn't want just to go, take the material and go back to Europe and do a movie about it. For me it's super important to do it together with
there. So you mentioned Berlin, you mentioned a little bit Romania, and then Mexico and Spain, I think. So it's really, I like how international, like your film, this one, for example, that we're talking about today, it's already capturing many countries. And I think, if I'm not wrong, it's like German, Austrian production.
Yeah, I always call it like this because I'm Austrian, but I live in Berlin. So and so my studio is in Berlin, so it's a German production.
Right.
But all the grant normally comes from Austria, so it's...
okay, I see.
So I'm more Austrian than...
Yes, but... I like it. I mean, I don't know with the Mexican film, but for sure this one, with the pond and the water, you still manage to get sounds, for example, from Spain and visual from another places. So combine different places, different countries, different times as well.
But me, I always there. I get my inspiration. No, I always, if I get an invitation, because I do also workshops, and they invite me to Bolivia, to Gambia or wherever, once I'm there, I do something and just don't stay there for a workshop. Normally I use this trip and stay with the artist in residence, so somehow to collect and record or
It makes sense, and I think it's very good that you're constantly acting or looking for ideas or inspiration.
Yeah.
That's nice. Did you record anything, or did you look for anything here?
No, now I'm really here private. My task is now to meet people and have the social life because I'm quite a nerd sometimes.
Yes.
No, I didn't bring any camera or sound. No.
Okay, well,
I'm
good.
on holiday.
Is it the first time you come?
Yeah, it's the first time from Deutsch. I'm really so happy because I heard so nice things about
That's
this place.
nice.
It's really, really nice.
Oh, good. I'm happy. Yes.
No, it's a special place.
Also talking about waters, here there are like thermal baths and waters.
Yeah, that's on my
Have you
plan
tried?
now.
Okay.
No, I will go now.
Yeah, you should. I think it's very nice. Also, the weather is getting
Yeah,
cozy for that.
nice.
I think it's gonna rain a little bit.
Yeah, it's on and off, no?
But it's okay.
thing.
Well, actually, it's a very good fantoche because sometimes it's very cold, very rainy,
Yeah,
and this year is not bad.
climate change. Yeah.
Yeah, let's say silver lining because there's nothing to be happy about.
No.
Because it's called Under the Onion Skin, I always have an onion-related question.
Onion.
Yes.
No, but just when you mentioned onions, there was something I wanted to try with onions.
Some food to try or some experiment.
Like experiment, because I saw there's a really nice movie. Just you put light under to cut vegetables and put light under.
Yeah.
And I thought I will really like when next time I have a bit more time to experiment with food.
It sounds very nice, and also because you said all these macro cameras, that will be very interesting.
Good that you asked me this question because I nearly forgot this idea.
Yeah, now it's recorded. No, that's nice. Also, I think when you cut vegetables or fruit, you also get all these water droplets, and in macro, that should look very nice.
Yeah. There's one, in Animistica is one part of a cut banana tree closed up, and it's full of water, and it really, people think it's like a cut of a human or something, no? So I really like this idea. And
yeah, again, going back to the beginning, like when you are so close, you could be many things. You show less, but you open more possibilities in the viewer's mind.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for
It was very
this conversation.
good. Yes.
Super.
Thank you so much.
How did you like this chat? As usual, I will leave all the relevant links in the show notes. In the meantime, I encourage you to catch up with all the other episodes you haven't checked out yet. That's all for now. This was Under the Onion Skin. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, with another director and a short animated film. Ciao!